I was introduced to Angela. Angela was looking for a mentor. So apparently, being an engineer and her being an engineer, I became a mentor. And we got talking, and she was interested in a whole bunch of things. But I discovered that she lectures in the engineering departments at Kenyatta University and University of Nairobi. And so we got talking a lot about the quality of the graduates coming out of universities, and the struggles we have as a business trying to make use of those graduates, train them, and I guess ultimately we were wondering whether they care or not. And so we've been talking and talking and talking, and then I was doing my master's in textile architecture, and my thesis needed a tutor that had a master's in something in this related field, and so I wrote her in, and so the teacher became a student kind of scenario, but she had a massive impact on getting her thesis done. And I met her for a coffee the day before I submitted the thesis, and we were talking about the chaos of running a business. And I was giving her some scenarios and then I realized that actually she'd been involved in a different business, consulting on similar problems. And so I was like, hang on, are you free? If you're free, come and help us. And now she's here. Because of COVID, we had supply chain volatility, and that kind of translated into capacity as well. Right? We've been having, can I say, labor supply volatility as well. Availability of the right skilled labor, and so figuring out whether we can do something on time at the right quality was a challenge, and we were trying to figure out why. So the problem was, or the problem I wanted to understand was, what is the root cause of our problem.
It was interesting to see the other end. I teach this concept, but it goes as far as me testing you. I don't get to see the practical end of it and how it all comes home. So it's been interesting. Like today we had a material that was brought in for assessment, and Asim could immediately pick out the string marks. And we're having this conversation like, no, I think it's creep because of the time it's been under the heat and how long it's been. It's like, no, I think it's string. So it's interesting to see all those concepts come home together, and I wish we were given this feedback when you were in school. All those different units actually all come home together at some point. So it doesn't mean that if you learn a concept and it's not in your preceding years and then you flash it out, they all somehow form a bigger picture. I just wish we could impact that more on students, that just because it's one unit of a certain principle of engineering, it doesn't mean we say we never use calculus, but we actually use it. It's just that we don't differentiate to x to the power of something. But if you're trying to come up with a solution to something, you do some iteration. That's calculus one or another. So it's been interesting to see the other end of these principles practically, how materials behave, how forces behave, how people's force behave as well. Yeah, all that has been interesting dynamics. It does, and I wish I could tell these young kids, you have no idea how the world is a beautiful thing and you can change it as how you want it, and just the power of what I am giving you. It's not a 45 hours thing and you think that's it. The power in that 45 hours is amazing. I just wish they could see the other end of things, and I can't wait to teach in a different way now. And say now, yeah, so when I'll be explaining a principle, I have a story for it now, yeah.
When I was my first degree, all the lecturers had research projects. We And so all the case studies that they would present were based on research they were doing. So for me, it's a very normal thing to go into a thing, into a lecture, be given a concept, and then the application of it. And definitely from the interviewing of graduates and stuff like that, that is missing in a big way. The application of what you're learning, there's a disconnect.
In one of the conversations we're having, I think it should be mandatory for all companies, especially in this production area, that you highlight what your issues are. Is in production, whatever it is your line of business is, and partner with the university and throw it back to the university. Mm-hmm. We want a solution for this. Our company is struggling with this. How can we support each other?
That was really interesting for my thesis. Actually, both degrees of thesis. The minimum, the criteria to pass was that you must contribute something new. So whatever I was doing had to never have been done before.
This is for your masters?
Yeah, for both my degrees.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because the first one was in the UK. Yeah, that was about contributing either to academic something, or like in my case, I did something that was whether it was a product design thing, whether the product would be viable or not in terms of business sense. The second one, the tensile architecture one, like we're talking about now publishing a thesis or extracts of the thesis as a paper that goes into professionals can look at it and say, okay, these are the problems, or this is how we solve things.
And add to the reference point.
Exactly.
For learning.
Yeah. So it allows me to be the expert in my field just by doing the thesis. And the comparison is that everyone who comes out of a Kenyan university doesn't have the criteria not to contribute, and so they will do the same thing someone did the previous year, and so there's no progress. So we've been working with these NGOs for years and years, and it helps being a priority vendor for the continent for like US State Department contractors. So when the disaster in Turkey happened, the humanitarian response has a sequence of how they do things. So the first thing is the search and rescue effort, so they're trying to find survivors. The next thing moves to sort of water and sanitation, then shelter and food. So by the time we were being requested to start thinking about doing things, we were already sort of 2 to 3 weeks into our post-disaster. And yeah, because we're on the network of these NGOs, they call and they say, we have a requirement, or we've been asked to provide support for the disaster. What can you do? And the question that came was, we have a cargo flight leaving on a particular date, and we need to fill it with, and they give us a list of things, tents, food, blankets, blah blah blah. And they're like, how many tents can you do so that the plane is full? So from experience, we kind of had a rough idea of how much output we can do on a weekly basis, and so we committed to doing 50 tents in 5 days, and we did it.
It was really timely for Asim not to be around during that period of time. Really so timely. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see the different synergies. It was interesting to see Pauline on the floor. Usually you just see her on the desk. And just to bring it home, it was a really huge achievement. I got to experience night shift, first of all. It was still need to understand why tents bring mosquitoes. I don't understand it. Because when you go for camping, there are no mosquitoes. So I don't understand why when you're trying to produce one, there's an influx of mosquitoes. But it was interesting to see how strategy and planning brings everything together. It was interesting to see how if you get your materials in time, if you get your resources in time, and the right kind of resources, that way you're ensuring your quality and things are flowing smoothly, there's feedback being given in good time, and you review every other time to see what to improve on, what to keep doing, and just keep the team spirit up. It's good to have your resources in good time. Yeah, because then that changes the flow of everything else. Yeah, so that way you're able to actually forecast and deliver against your forecast. Yeah. It was cutting, and mainly because there are few, but the stitchers were many, so there was a bottleneck at some point, and also because of the skill as well. That's something we need to think: how many guys can we train, and how many guys are interested in doing it as well. There was also stitchers as well, because most of them were basically not available, and schools don't do this kind of stitching, so you have to flip your normal cardigan or sweater or fabric stitcher to now your tent stitcher. So it's not a skill that everybody has. It's a niche skill that you either must have prior experience or you have the right attitude for it. So I would say those are the two: stitching and cutting. Yeah. And it's interesting to see men on the floor as well, doing the stitching. Yeah. And interesting, welding wasn't a problem.
I think it shows the challenges we have in vocational training in the country. Yeah, because now we have an abundance of metalworking labor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is because of the expressway. The construction of the expressway led to them training thousands of metal workers. Once the expressway was done, where did they go? So that's why we have an abundance of metal workers. It's not that the vocational training capacity increased. There was an infrastructure project that generated a certain skill. Yeah, and then we go to like stitching. Stitching technical textiles or heavy duty textiles is a skill. The machines are slightly different. The needles are different. The thread is different. But what we have available in the base that we have available is somebody who knows how to operate a stitching machine, a sewing machine. Because a garment sewing machine still has the same fundamentals: thread, needles, and the machine. But the difference is now the weight and the stiffness and how you maneuver the material on the kind of machine. And that is, you need to be, if you've never worked with that, you need to be open to dealing with all the variables that come with learning how to do something from scratch. I think the other thing is that we don't have the luxury of training in the vocation as well. We don't have a training capacity from the sort of teaching side. You're gonna get a maintenance engineer to explain to someone how the machine works. The maintenance engineer doesn't know how to perhaps cut the material or how different the materials are. So there's a lot of things that come into the picture, and then I think add to that, we have language barriers. And very often the person ended up training to be a stitcher because they didn't have enough resources to go to university. So it's seen as an
Job.
Yeah, it's seen as another. It's not the job that they wanted.
Yeah.
So the passion to do the job also is lacking.
Yeah.
It's very different to what I've come across in Europe. There's a lot of pride in vocational work. People want jobs like that. People, they want to be working with their hands every day, which is so different to what I come across here.
It's because we don't appreciate impact. We're chasing the money. We don't care for impact. Yeah. I'd rather have a white collar job and have a big name attached to, have big alphabets attached to my name, as opposed to actually producing something that is impactful and goes along with. One of the conversations we're trying to have the same is training engineers and close that gap for skills they don't have. And I had a conversation with a lady who tried to do it, but nobody picked them. Nobody picked these seasoned engineers. So we were back to, so then what's the point of me doing it? First of all, pick them, train them through, is it CV, is it design, is it some particular machines that all engineers should know how to, basically that gap that we have in the labs, because our labs are not fully stocked. But who is going to employ them? We have consultancies that are being run by people as above 60 years old, so there's no capacity. And then you have ministry cut across who just give work to particular funds. So then what's the point of going to, say, for example, engineering school, if you're 60-something plus are still holding on to the jobs? Yeah. So you have an electrical engineer doing wiring, then what's the vocation of guy you're going to do?
Well, in my steps, take graduates and give them the soft skills so that they're office ready. These are not vocational, but it's the same concept, or rather, dealing with the same problem. Like take accountants for example, where they come out with a CPA, K, and then they come into the workplace and they don't know the difference between debit and credit. I'm like, how did you pass the exam?
But I'm so stuck with theory.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
we're striving to pass exams, forgetting that the exam gives me an abbreviation at the end of my name.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go into the work environment and prove that the abbreviation is what its value. So when I see somebody who comes with a CPA-K but can't add or subtract or can't use Excel, and I'm like, okay, well then I'm a better accountant than you who's meant to be qualified. That scares me. Because then how many years am I going to be working? We didn't start with the culture we have, and it's ever evolving.
And as it should.
Yeah, when I joined, I mean, we had a lot of uneducated, unskilled. We had people on the shop floor who couldn't read or write.
Okay, how was the quality then?
Bizarrely fine.
Interesting.
But then it was.
They got great though.
They were able to churn out standard products, and our scope that we were doing was not that wide as it is now.
Okay.
To some extent, it's my fault that we have so many challenges because I widened the market that we want to play in.
I agree, unfortunately. At least for the 2 months of being here.
So I think creating a culture was very much about understanding who I am and what I want as well, and who do I want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
What are the personalities that I want to work with? So I myself never wanted to work under somebody who was like, have you done this, have you done this? The jobs that I had before, not that I had too many jobs, because I realized very quickly that what the hell am I doing selling my brain for? I knew that I couldn't work under certain types of pressure, under certain kinds of deadlines. And so I wanted to make sure that the people I'm working with understand the difference between working and having fun, performance, deadlines, and the growth of the business is holistic.
Yeah.
So as long as everybody else is growing, then the entire business grows. But it was, for me, fundamentally, if I'm coming here every day, I wanna come to a fun place. You're not gonna have fun if everyone's under pressure to meet deadlines. There's a bit of leniency, and I think that's the reason why we have been, to an extent, we've been successful in having Gen Z come in, and if, yeah, there's been people who tried, and there's ones who questioned, how the hell does this place work? It's not what everyone told me work was meant to be. You told me, right?
Yeah.
That people come and no, yeah, you came into a work environment and you're like, wait, you guys have fun on Friday. Like, what's that about? So there's a lot of awkward confusion at the beginning, right? When they're like, literally how does this place work? But once they settle in, they realize, okay, it's if I'm gonna be here for all these hours, I'm gonna get along with my colleagues. These are the same people I'm gonna eat with, lunch with, laugh with. And we've got events, some of us end up on events together. You're sharing a tent with someone, you have to get along.
Yeah. Tapo is fluid. We are not, or rather, yes, we are part of it. We are not stuck on one thing. We'll sway to how the beach is swaying. And because we know our fundamentals, quality is key, time is key, and what we need to do, we will sway until it fits in what we're supposed to be and what Tapo stands for. So I would say we're fluid. Yeah.
I think the values are very well grounded.
Yeah. Just like our shoots.
I think it's also about being very in touch with what the entire business is doing. If we were a bigger team and I was not involved on the ground, then it would have been that much harder. Not just me, I'm talking about the entire team. It would be that much harder to mobilize as quickly as we can. And you come across, everyone has an alternate skill. Nobody here is only able to do one job. If you ask them to go and do something else, they'll take some time to get going, but it's not difficult for them to start because I think we've got the quality management system in place as well. So you can kind of refer to all the documents and stuff and say, okay, this is what it says I should be doing. So I think we've done a lot of work to build on those values. And it speaks volumes when you say we've got employees who've been here 20, 30 years. I think there's a guy who's been here 40 years now. I'm going to check. So if the business is 47 or 48 years old,
it's pretty much old.
Yeah. And it's the work ethic that they show on a daily basis that everyone follows by example. And so you're talking about one guy who's been here 40 years, somebody else who's been 30, 20. We're talking about institutional memory. We're talking about people who've seen the ups and downs. So if you have lunch with them on a random day, for example, and you just ask them, what was it like in the 80s? There'll be an inspirational story that comes out. What was it like in the 90s? Inspirational story. And those stories then come, when planning for something like this comes up. In fact, yesterday, when the purchase order came, because it came at 6 p.m. It was Pauline, Francis, and myself, and we spent an hour talking about historical, chaotic projects that we've had. So we talked about 2011 when we ran for 6 months. We were running 24/7. We remembered that we got to a point where we had to stop the night shift for a few weeks because we had 3 factories within Kenya running 24/7, but they couldn't keep up with our ability to produce what we were producing. Similar story for 2014. And so 1 hour of just talking about we used to be able to do this, we can still do it, we didn't have this machinery, we didn't have access to this material. And so we're talking about progress, and we're referencing to history because we know what was possible with less. Now we have more, we can do more. So, so we did 50 tents in 5 days, and now they've asked us to do again 50 tents in 5 days. So that will be a total of 100 that we're sending to Turkey, and we'll keep being available to do the next 50 and the next 50, because at the end of the day, it's for humanity.
You can do whatever it is you put your mind to do. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd be part of production, and here I am, in a place where I didn't come in to actually do the job. I came in to appreciate the process and see how we can enhance it. I've been in for a night shift, and now Francis is letting me run a few of the simple projects, and I follow guys say, "Hi, where are you? When do I come back?" And people have to speak English. It's hilarious. But my biggest takeaway has, people are your strongest resource. If you have a community, if you have a relationship with people, nothing is impossible. So it's been interesting to see the other coin of what I do, my product, so to speak. Yeah, and what I can do better when I go back to teaching.